Hi. I also joined the crowd and thanks for the organization. It's pleasure to come again and again with people that I know. It's a kind of assemblies. I feel sometimes that it's a troop that is traveling from place to place with many people. And as a result, I must kind of share with you maybe my personal secret. So that whenever I come to a conference, I am always petrified with one thing that people will say, oh, he's again telling the same type of story. We heard it many times. And I always try at least that nobody will say this type of thing. And also the challenge is here as a result that at least some of us, I think this is the fourth conference in the last year, right, Galia? So I tried hard. So I asked myself, what can I say something new that Galia and Moti didn't hear before?
I should have said the same thing to you.
So eventually I decided to assemble all parts of the story that I have been engaged in the last few years about barriers, but it has chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, and I thought that maybe I will tell the whole story combining the different parts, and it will be a conceptual presentation mostly, and as you can imagine, it is accompanied with a lot of research. I will not enter into different studies. If you want, you can get it. And I will not also talk how we can overcome the barriers. In 20 minutes, you know, it's too much to ask. And I will say that the feature of the story will be that first it will be sad, so we'll be crying. It will also at the end I will try to provide kind of happy ending. That, and it will be also telegraphic very much. So let's go through the journey. I will be presenting the process and the elements, and it's on universal level. I believe that what I will be presenting takes place in every society that engages in intractable conflict by the nature, and I did studies also in other places than Israel, but of course in Israel was the easiest way, and I did many of them. Just one second. What direction? Yeah. Okay. The beginning is, and this is my really basic fundamental assumption, that the socio-psychological part of every conflict is essential. I believe people decide to carry conflicts, people decide to end the conflict. I don't know any other mechanism. Maybe some of the political scientists, geographers, economists will tell me, but conflicts outbreaks when two or more groups perceive that their goals or interests are in direct contradiction and decide to act accordingly. So human beings decide because, as you can imagine, people may perceive that their goals or interests are in direct contradiction, but may decide not to act, as we often do on interpersonal level. The same goes on interethnic and international level. So I really believe very much in a social psychological. Now, so this is the first part. Groups that decide to act violently need to form and present publicly an epistemic basis. In other words, we are not in the 14th century that the prince wakes up in the morning and say to his Swiss soldiers, we are going to take Siena. Nobody asks, they go. Today, we have to explain. We have to rationalize, legitimize the reason, to reconstruct collective identity, to justify use of violence, to motivate and mobilize society members. If you don't succeed, there is no conflict. Think about Red Brigade. Didn't go. So eventually they found themselves in a prison and nobody, I mean, really the masses of the expected will follow them, did not. And to get support of the international society, community, which always. So the point is you have to build a story, narrative, call it as you want, which is the basis. Oh, I'm sorry, we'll go to the other direction. Right, so what will be the story? The story, you probably know, those are the themes of what I call ethos of conflict. You have to justify the goals, right? You have to build the story, delegitimize the goals of the rival, obviously. Then you have to tell the story about the threats on symbolic level or a tangible level. Every group is a bus, cares, have their own story, what is going on. Always delegitimize the opponent, they are the bastards, and at the same time have a positive collective image. You perceive yourself as a victim. You need mobilization, so you need to tell the story about patriotism. They need to sacrifice life because in violent conflicts, you know, your group members will be killed, and unity. So this is a story that is told, and if you go through the stories, wherever you go, Sri Lanka, if you go to Rwanda, we go southwards, you will find that the story is meaningful, tells a nice story, simplistic, obviously one-sided, and moralistic, and the story has to satisfy the needs of the collective and individual, which is, this is the basic assumptions that you have. Okay, so so this story with the accompanying emotions eventually become the major barrier to peacemaking process. My point is that when there is no light at the end of the tunnel, the narrative is functional and necessary. Without it, as I said, if it's not well accepted, internalized, it's impossible, as I said before, to carry a violent conflict. But here is the problem. When the light at the end appears, and there are signs of possibility to solve it peacefully, the same story, narrative with emotions become a barrier, because think about it, as I will show you in a moment, that the narrative was propagated, imparted to the society members from the very early age up to, I mean, through their adulthood and even later. And now you have to say, oh, you know, what I was telling you, that they are bastards. Now, no, we can talk with them. Think for a second, you know, what a role had Rabin. You know, for years there was a law. You couldn't meet them. They are animals. And now you have to say, no, we can talk with them. Not only that we can talk, but you put Israeli soldiers in the same jeep with Palestinian PLO. It's crazy if you think about it. It's inhuman. It cannot go in this way, and we know that it's very often doesn't work. So not only I want to go back, but when you build the narrative, you make all the efforts to maintain it. Even when it appears an alternative narrative that propagates peace and humanization of the rival, there is a struggle. And as we witness now in Israel, so the government is using all mechanisms I will tell you about them in order to maintain the hegemonic narrative that supports continuation of the conflict. And what do they do? Control the information, right? What they do? Censorship. And I can give you, because I really studied, and we have many, many examples for each, either on general level, in different places of conflict and, of course, in Israel. We have also discrediting of the counter-information. Right? So if you want to understand what is going on, did I bring it? No? If you want to understand what Israeli government is doing with B'Tselem and with breaking the silence, this is what it does. It doesn't want that another alternative information take will be presented, so society members will be exposed to, and therefore they discredit the information and the messengers, organization or individuals. You know, I can tell you personal example. Personal example is that I carried a study comparing Israeli and Palestinian textbooks, and what did I find? Nothing surprising. So both of them really try to present their own narrative. Absolutely not. But because the government is saying that we Israelis, teach only love, friendship, and peace, they, the bastard, only socialize towards hatred and evilness, so the government didn't like the study. So I was called a traitor. Traitor, actually, by the Minister of Education, and this is a way so they discredit anyone who tries to say something that they didn't like. And monitoring, you will find, in Israel is going on monitoring. We are monitored. Galia, there are groups that follow what do we say, what do we write, and you can find them in Google, if you will see. Punishments and closure of archives, time after time. Just now, a law extended the period from 30 years to 50 years in order to make it more difficult to study, to find what is going on. What happened? They don't like me? And now, I would like to say several things in general about the institutionalization and hegemonization of conflict-supporting narratives. First, the narrative is acquired at a very early age. In the last 4 years, I think, I engaged in the study of very young children in kindergarten, 3, 4, 5. And I found that through ceremonies and stories, the young children in Israel are already presented with the themes that I presented before. It goes through, if you know, Passover, and it goes through Memorial Day, and it goes through Holocaust Day, and it goes in Hanukkah, and it goes obviously Independence Day, and it goes in Day of Jerusalem. Very young children are really exposed and acquire what I call the elements of ethos of conflict. And then imparted in the socialization process, what is going on in schools, preparation for the army. In the army, they are also indoctrinated, and it is maintained and reinforced by leaders. You probably all heard the speech of our leader in UN, and these themes were jumping out through his mouth. Institutions, organizations, and mass media and social media, we have a lot of talkbacks. Media is very biased. It's not fully biased. There are some newspapers and obviously channels, but in general, if you watch the television, government television, press, you find expressed in culture products, not now, but in the 50s, 60s, the themes that I just described were expressed. At the moment, only, as I said, academia and culture are the two islands which present alternative narrative. Appear in the educational material, are shared by society members. You heard from Tammy a little bit, but 50% are rightist. And when we look at the ethos, it is held by a majority of Israelis, widely used frequently in the society, in ceremonies, speeches, etc., etc. So this is the situation. 5 minutes, okay? So we'll finish. Eventually, conflict-supporting narratives with the supporting emotion become pillars of culture of conflict. I apologize for the photo, but I think it's a fantastic expression of what does it mean, culture of conflict. Now, on individual level, so this was on societal level. What is going on individual level? The ways that society members process information and make decisions. They don't want to be exposed to alternative information. They don't want to read books that bring alternative information. They don't want to meet Palestinians that will tell them a different story. They don't want to hear anything that will advance peace. And eventually we call it, they encourage closure, conformity, obedience, self-censorship. It's another particular topic that we were studying in the last 4 or 5 years, relatively new one in social psychology, and we found that Israelis favor self-censorship, as just Tammy said with regard to one of the, and moral decay, what we call, I could not translate it carne food. How do you say it? Moral decay? No, it's not?
Become a rhinoceros. It's exactly what you're saying. Yeah. Turning into a rhinoceros.
Okay. So, but we have to remember, obviously, which will be a sin, that the story is not only constructed, it is maintained and reinforced by violence. So, we do see violence, experience violence from time to time. Now there is another terror which fuels the continuation of the conflict. And then we have to add number of factors: threatening context, habituation, what you Ezra called ontological security. People feel much more comfortable. I called it routinization of the conflict, which we wrote number of studies. Investment, don't forget. Israel, for example, is the 5th largest exporter of weapons. So can you imagine, we have in military industry, people live with the conflict here. And don't forget spoilers. Groups, organizations, individuals who adhere to the goals of conflict and make whatever they can in order to continue it and prevent any peacemaking process. So this is really, in certain way, kind of vicious cycle of intractable conflict, where you have conflict supporting master narrative that feeds the acts of intractable conflict, the violence, and then the violence is used very often and provides an evidence to the conflict supporting master narrative. Optimistic ending, right. So, there are also some examples, and I would like to finish with, did I take it out? No? Oh, okay. Yeah, I had a piece, probably I erased, of a speech of Yitzhak Rabin when he got the Nobel Prize, and it's really moving because he provides a hope and presents a very different picture than our present Prime Minister. Thank you.
That was not difficult.